Here's a little error I've made in the ranking. Now, cut me some slack, there are almost 300 characters that I'm ranking, and there will be a few characters lower or higher than they should be. That's just the way it is, and this guy here is an example of that. I was under the impression that he had both agility and strength as abilities, but it turns out he only has agility, no strength at all. So my source was wrong, and this guy should have been back in like part 2 or something, but oh well. You can't win them all. This is Trauma, the last agility-only character we're going to see. In this game, he looks like a man going through a midlife crisis, with that, swept hair and that really aged face. In the comics, though, he's on the younger side. His power is that he transforms into the thing his opponent fears. That's kind of reflected in this game. If you target something, he turns into a giant spider and hits the thing you target. Honestly, kind of gross, giving me big Anthony vibes. There are 3 different Black Knights in this game, all with different names. Coincidentally, all 3 of them are going to be featured in this part, and also coincidentally again, all 3 of them are DLC characters. That's right, there are no Black Knights in the base game, but 3 throughout the DLC. If you ask me, that's a little bit overkill, but I'll forget it ever happened. But this is the Nathan Garrett version, as in the guy's name is Nathan Garrett. And this guy kind of sucks compared to the other 2. I'm not a fan of the way he moves and fights. He's just way too clunky. Also, his design is a big step down from the other 2 Black Knights, in my opinion. His 2 abilities are agility and grapple. We haven't encountered grapple yet in this series, but it's not new to LEGO games. Simply put, those with the grapple ability can target those hooks and pull them down. Another DLC character here, this time from the Ant-Man DLC pack. This is Cassie Lang, Ant-Man's daughter, who somehow grew from a 7-year-old to a 20-year-old in a span of only 5 years. Cassie Lang has 2 abilities, one of which I honestly think was a mistake. The first ability, which is the unsurprising one, is agility, of course. The one I think was a mistake is the stealth ability. Stealth is new to the series, but it's just like invisibility from LEGO Incredibles or stealth from LEGO Ninjago movie game. Those with stealth can, go undetected. In this game, you can frequently find a camera that closes a door automatically when it sees you. If you have stealth, the camera won't see you and you can use it to access whatever the camera's guarding. You use it quite frequently in this game because one of the main Avengers has this ability. Cassie Lang, though? Why does she have it? Does the camera assume Cassie Lang isn't a threat so it doesn't detect her? It's just so weird. I think it's a lapse in the game code or something. For the 3rd time in a row, purely by coincidence, is yet another DLC character. This is the first DLC character from the Black Panther DLC, which, by the way, very slimy of TT Games to omit Black Panther from the base game for this DLC, especially since Black Panther was probably the biggest MCU superhero to not actually be in the MCU yet. But aside from that, here is the DORA Milaje warrior, Black Panther's elite task force or something. They're really skilled is my point, and her 2 abilities I mostly agree with. First is, of course, agility, but the other is the cracked wall ability. Agility makes sense since they're agile, I guess, but cracked wall is a little weird. I guess in the end, I'm not going to complain about it because it's not a big deal. Also, at the very beginning of the series, I said something about starting a counter for characters that were introduced in the MCU after this game came out, and we still haven't come across an actual character that applies. I thought it would be more common, but I guess not. But I think I'll add the DORA Milaje warrior to start off the list because Okoye is pretty notable in the MCU at this point, and she's like the leader of the DORA Milaje, so there, the list finally has something on it. We've already reached the final member of the Warriors 3, first Fandral, then Volstagg, and now finally Hogun. Just like in Thor Ragnarok, the Warriors 3 were treated pretty poorly in this game. At least Hogun's death was a little more honorable than Volstagg and Fandral's, so I guess it makes sense that he's the best of the 3 in this game since he lasted the longest in Thor Ragnarok. Not that he would have lasted against Hela any longer had he been at the Bifrost portal when she arrived, but Hogun's two abilities are Cracked Wall and Agility. So basically, he's Volstagg and Fandral merged into one, since Fandral only had Agility and Volstagg only had Cracked Wall. It's weird how it works out like that. He has that giant mace thing as a weapon too, which is more interesting than Fandral's sword or Volstagg's axe. As promised, here's one of the other superior versions of Black Knight, whose name is Dane Whitman. Both Dane Whitman and Nathan Garrett, the Black Knight I already talked about, were both from the Masters of Evil DLC. Nathan Garrett was the one you played in the actual level, which is unfortunate, but Dane Whitman just came as part of the pack and should have been the one you played in the level because he's a lot less tedious to play. He doesn't have grapple like Nathan Garrett, which is a downside, sure, but he has agility and Cracked Wall, and I find Cracked Wall to be a tad more useful than grapple. I just see the Cracked Walls more often than grapple points, and that's really my reasoning. Plus, I like Dane Whitman's running animation with his sword poised in front of him. It's just very apparent that they made sure this Black Knight was a lot better to play as, but also not the one you play as in the story mode for this level. Side note, when writing the first draft of the script for this video, I hadn't seen the Eternals movie yet. Suffice to say that this guy is in the movie, even though he doesn't officially become the Black Knight. So yeah, there's another guy to add to the list after the DORA Milaje warrior. And just like that, we've reached the final Black Knight of this game. It's crazy that we had this whole Black Knight saga in the span of one part, but also not surprising at all. This Black Knight is named Augustine Dulac, and I placed him over Dane Whitman purely because of the yellow bird on his helmet. Also, to the 128 views of my channel that came from France, I'm sorry if I pronounced that name wrong, but also I'm reading that this Black Knight is a British descendant of Sir Lancelot, so should I apologize to the French? Because he's British, and historically the French and British hate each other, so I don't know. This Black Knight is from the Black Panther DLC and was actually a boss fight in the level. This guy is the same ability-wise to Dane Whitman, with the Cracked Wall and Agility as his two abilities. Something I didn't mention about Dane Whitman that I should have, that also applies to Augustine Dulac, is that when you perform a Cracked Wall break, his winged horse materializes out of nowhere and flies out of the Cracked Wall. What is that implying? Is that his horse was trapped behind the wall and the Black Knight is releasing the horse from his prison? Is it a metaphor? I don't know. Aha, finally, another character I can add to the characters in this game that were introduced in the MCU after the release of this game list. Valkyrie, kindly add yourself to that list there. Valkyrie was introduced in Thor Ragnarok, played by Tessa Thompson. I didn't know much about Valkyrie in the comics at all, but it turns out there are a ton of weird Thor-related characters that they introduced in the Marvel mythos over the years, and this game includes a bunch. Valkyrie is by no means an example of this, though. In fact, she's a pretty safe character addition. Her two abilities are the same two we've dealt with in the past two segments, which are Cracked Wall and Agility. I've been preoccupied with the other topics during these last few segments, so I failed to mention that these past 5 characters have the same exact ability makeup, so of course, when characters have the same exact abilities, I tend to rank them based on my personal preference, and frankly, I like Tessa Thompson's portrayal of Valkyrie, so that's why she's ranked higher than the others. We have one more character with the Agility / Cracked Wall combo, and I like this character most of the bunch, and I'll reveal him right now. That's right, I'm a huge fan of Iron Fist, minus the show though. That was pretty terrible. It was honestly a disgrace that the martial arts fight scenes were that bad in a show where the main character is literally a martial arts master. But yeah, this is Iron Fist, and since the Iron Fist show came out a year after this game's release, and the Defenders Netflix shows were considered MCU canon at the time, I'm putting Iron Fist on the list of characters in this game that were added to the MCU later. So far on the list, we have the DORA Milaje warrior, Valkyrie, and Black Knight, Dane Whitman, and Iron Fist, all of which were added in this part alone. But like I said, Iron Fist has Cracked Wall and Agility as abilities. Iron Fist gets much better treatment in LEGO Marvel Superheroes 2. He even gets like a whole level based off the Iron Fist lore. We finally covered all of the Cracked Wall and Agility characters. I didn't realize how many of them there actually were. But we're moving on to bigger and better characters such as Dum Dum Dugan here. Dum Dum Dugan was one of the Howling Commandos and he's unlocked in the Rail Hydra level. A very unfortunate name for a level, by the way. Anyway, in that level, it's basically Steve Rogers' PTSD hour, with him reliving two key moments in the first Captain America movie. Those being the burning factory scene and the scene where Bucky dies. It was cool that they dedicated a whole level to a film that would otherwise get no representation in this game. Dum Dum Dugan wasn't playable in the level, but unlocked as a character token. He has two abilities, which are grapple and explosive. These aren't really surprising. His explosive ability is actually kind of cool because unlike most other characters with this ability, Dum Dum Dugan throws one of those, 1940s old-fashioned grenades and not the high-tech stuff most of the modern characters use for explosives.